Minute early and then get a little bit of extra talking time. Well, welcome back. We're now going to hear from another of our members, Yoti. They were very generous last night in sponsoring the event at the Football Museum, so thanks to them for that. Julie's going to be presenting, Julie Dawson, who's the Chief Policy and Regulatory Officer. Julie's a global leader with a proven track record of developing advanced strategic insight and impactful thought leadership, and is known internationally for driving the ethical framework development for Yoti's digital identity platform. So Julie represents Yoti at numerous fora, including the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Digital Identity, and oversees Yoti's Guardian Council, as well as their internal and external ethics boards. So I look forward to a very ethical presentation.
Always, Ian, always. Thank you all for joining us. I've been really excited about this session because one of the things we thought we'd try and do is bust some of those myths about age assurance. There's lots of things that all of us in this community read about and we wince and we say, really? Are people really saying that? So we're going to take some of those head on and bust some of the myths. So as Ian said, we want to focus on age assurance. Hand over to technical lead here. Thank you. And again, perfect. So I lead on regulatory and policy, and just a little bit about Yoti. So Yoti is a company that's been around for 10 years now, and we focus on age and identity and e-signatures and also anti-spoofing. So we're a very broad platform. All of you here today and those online might be heard about us more in the age assurance side, but also, and we're founded on identity assurance. So we'll dig into a little bit of those. And also we look at credentials about people. So if we just slip in a little bit more, on the age area, and that's what we're really going to focus on here today. In terms of age assurance, we're already working across multiple sectors. And we, just as one company in this industry, are leading and dealing with social networks, with law enforcement, with retail, gaming, telecoms. And some of these are high profile. You might have read about the work with OnlyFans. You might have read about the work with UBO from very early on, way back in 2019, or that with law enforcement, looking at ages of victims and perpetrators in CSAM, which goes across all ages. There's been a focus on retail, and some of you who attended our event last night would see how this is actually integrated within retail self-checkout, such as NCR. And also in the gaming world, I think there are people here from the likes of Sony, from the likes of Lego, all organisations that are using this technology. Sometimes it's looking at, is someone old enough to be over 25 and give parental consent, and sometimes it's looking at the age of the individual. But as you can see, a broad spread of companies around the world are looking to see how globally this can support age-appropriate design in its many forms. But yeah, there are lots and lots of different ways to check age. And we come initially from the identity area. Those of you that have been here will have seen our work in the UK with Lloyds and with the Post Office and our reusable digital identity network. And from there, you can just share a reusable age attribute. Also, we have a whole range of other methods that industry has developed. Some of those spanned from the lucky ones in the world, the over, several billion people do have identity documents, but we know there's a billion people that don't have identity documents. So originally people might have shared a full document. This industry has grown up to just share a data minimized age. Is this person age over 18, or is this person within an age band? So sometimes there's the primary check from the document through a one-off upload, just sharing the data minimized age, or from a reusable identity document. And then there were those secondary sources, which could be databases, credit reference agencies, mobile network operators, some of which might need additional authentication to check that it's the same person that really does have that age. And then over time, a new range of approaches have developed, which build on estimation and looking at what can I work out about an individual. So we know that industry, and if you've attended this conference, there are lots of new innovations around estimation approaches that don't rely on that initial document. And there could be a range of reasons why consumers want that. They might not feel comfortable with some use cases actually sharing something from a document. They might not have that document with them, or they might be in a country where that feels quite risky. So we as an organisation look at a whole range of methods and bring those all together in one hood. And then relying parties and regulators think, what is the best for that use case? And through the great age verification service or portal that Amari's team have developed, we let our relying parties pick which ones for which countries and the level of assurance. But yes, looking under the hood a little bit now. Facial age estimation was demonstrated yesterday, and any of you that want to find us later, we can see if you're looking after yourselves well today, if the week has been hard, and do your facial age estimate. But crucially, we've got to see, first of all, are you actually alive? This isn't your granny, is this actually you? So a key element is the liveness check. And then we need that to be independently tested. So NIS2, for instance, is a way that we as an organisation can ensure that that has been tested to work at a good level. But if you're going to get to that highest level of assurance, for some use cases, such as, say, alcohol or adult content, which are illegal for someone under a certain age to access, that's where you might need a buffer, as well as the liveness check, as well as the independent testing, and also looking at injection attack detection. So basically, if you're buying this or using this, these are the things that you want to see that are under the hood, and then statistically get to a highest level of assurance. But I would also say the same applies with document-based checks. You want to see, is this really an authentic document? At the event last night, we did showcase a whole range of documents. They can be tampered with, they can be fraudulently obtained genuine, they can be counterfeit. Do you really want to accept somebody uploading a kid's Legoland driving licence or somebody else's driving licence, or one that they've got from the internet? So is this an authentic document? But then you've got to see, is it actually mine and not someone else's? So that proof of ownership through the face match, matching my live face with that on the document. So if you're trying to get to this end of the scale for the highest level of assurance, you've really got to look at all of those things stacked together. Is this authentic document? Is it actually mine? Am I really alive? And look at the injection attack level. And that way you can get to the same level of assurance as we were talking about in the previous instance. I will pass now to Rob Amari, who'll go a little bit under the hood.
Hi, I'm Amari. I'm the Chief Product Engineer at Yoti, responsible for building out our age assurance and our trust and safety product range. So we're going to look at how we've set up our age verification service. And as Julie said, what we've looked at doing is offering a range of methods because we believe that this is the easiest and the best way for businesses to get started in getting their users age verified. I think it's very crucial, very important that users feel like they have the freedom to choose how they're going to perform their age verification. And it's really important that businesses understand and have the option to choose how they want to offer their age verification. Is that better? Perfect. So yeah, so we think it's really important that users and businesses have the choice to select their age verification method based on their use case, based on where they are in the world, based on what the regulatory requirements are, rather than offering a one-size-fits-all approach. Today, we're going to start looking at facial age estimation and trying to address just some of the myths around how facial age estimation is done, how it's used, and what the outcomes of those results are. So first of all, we're just going to have a look at how it's been used in the real world. So this is the scenario that's been used by retailers, making it very simple to go into a store, purchase a age-restricted item, look into a camera, and without having to wait for a human to interact, you can just get your age estimated, get approved, and then move on.
In the trials, Laurie, that were held a year or so ago, can you remember a little bit the numbers there of people using it and how many went along?
So when offered alongside other age verification methods, we're seeing that age estimation is by far the most preferred method. So it's around about 80% of people will choose to select age estimation over other methods. And this is because it's really simple. You have everything you need to kind of serve yourself. It gives users a bit of agency in solving their own problem of proving how old they are. So just looking at, I guess, some of the myths around age estimation, it's initially thought that you can only check people's ages if they're over 18, but with age estimation, we've shown that you can actually check somebody's age when they're under 18. We can check if they're 13, if they're 15, if they've kind of breached that 16-year-old threshold, and this can be done without having a document present. So it makes it accessible and more inclusive to kind of the wider the world.
If people want to look at that under the hood, there's a link to the Yoti white paper that will get put in the chat, and you can see all the way from 6 up to 70 and from 2019, how this has improved over the last few years.
Some of the other challenges we've heard about are how fast does this work? Is this going to be a kind of a slow process? Do I have to send in my picture and kind of wait a few minutes, wait a few days? And in reality, it kind of takes a second once the picture's been received to get a response back. So as an end user, you take your picture, you look into the camera, and then a second later you see, okay, my results back in, I can move on. We've also had kind of questions and challenges around, well, how scalable is this really? If it's an AI tool, is this going to take, again, a few seconds? Can you kind of run this once for one person, then you have to wait for another person? And the answer to that is no. We've seen and we've tested and we've kind of proved that this can be run in kind of the scales of hundreds of checks per second. So if you're a gaming platform and you have a big release and it's Christmas and everyone's kind of excited to open up their new game, you can kind of run this expecting that when 300 people a second are starting to arrive, you can handle that load and you can kind of keep pushing people through without having to wait for a whole team of document checkers to be looking at physical documents and seeing, is this a real document or not?
Yeah, so in terms of some of these, summing up, we had people say no one will use it. We've had people specifically in adult content say no one will use it, but absolutely when offered several choices, over 80%. Then we've had people say it's not accurate. Well, any of you that looked at the results yesterday from NIST, and we'll get the full report in a few weeks' time, will be able to see transparently exactly what is the accuracy. People say it's too slow, but it's what, about a second?
About a second to get through.
Yeah. Then we have it's too expensive, but then you'll have heard of all of the interoperability work that's happening across the EU consent project, across the industry. Another classic one is data harvesting. And people saying this must have been scraped from the internet, it's creating a central database.
Well, so part of the journey of creating our solutions has been getting trust from end users, getting trust from businesses, getting trust from regulators, and that all requires us to get independently checked. So while not all of our technology is open source, what we do is we invite people to regularly come in, look at what we're doing, and evaluate our technology, evaluate our policies, evaluate our staff to see how closely we're adhering to those policies, and then very regularly kind of produce reports to say that actually, yes, Yoti is building technology in a safe and secure way. Yes, Yoti is deleting all the data as soon as they've performed an age verification. Yes, they do have good policies around how they kind of bring in their staff, how they train their staff. Are their staff kind of up to date on kind of security and privacy and understanding what the impacts of their technology is over kind of the entire world?
And we've had people say things like, oh, consumers are going to find this very hard, it's not accessible, it won't be in my language.
So the language one's interesting, because we've spent a lot of time looking at how can we localize, how can we make this a more international offering. And first of all, using age estimation is great for that, because you don't need to worry about which governments are issuing documents with good security features or not. As long as you have a face and you have a camera, you can get through that journey.
Is it an invasion of privacy, am I right?
Well, it's in terms of, I guess, the old ways of doing these checks. It's more privacy preserving than looking at a document that reveals your full name, your date of birth, your height, your address, kind of your eye colour. This is pretty much just looking at a face, trying to figure out how old this person is, and then not trying to link this back to an individual, back to a government database or sharing this anywhere else.
So you would argue on the inclusion angle?
On the inclusion angle, more people can use this than using a document. On the privacy angle, there's less information shared. And on the accessibility angle, it's easier. You have less kind of external requirements to fall back to or to rely on.
Cool. So this is a little bit under the hood, how it's actually been built. For those that have never built one of these, using a neural network, we give it millions of images with month and year of birth. Keep giving it lots of them, and then when it's used in the wild, first of all, we do the liveness detection. Detect is this a live face, then it basically does that pixel level analysis, computes the numbers, determines the age, instantly deletes the image, and it gives back to the organisation just what they need. That could be, is this someone in the 13 to 17 band? It could be, is this someone over 18, or in other instances it might be more granular. And this could also be done on a device, would you say, Amari? There's different types of devices in the landscape. But...
Yep, so we've done historical work on can this be placed and run on a device. So again, if you, for the event yesterday, you'd have seen kind of, I guess, the bigger version of this of can this be run on a tablet. But we've also looked at can this be run on a smaller, like a handset device, and then again pairing that with our liveness and anti-spoofing technology to make sure it really is a live face in front of the camera.
So yeah, lots of people say this is facial recognition, and I think on a weekly basis our press office goes around reminding people this is not facial recognition because there is no unique recognition. It's not been trained to know that this is Julie, this is Amari, this is anyone else. So all it's doing is that detection of a face and then the characterization. So the two areas on the left. Thank goodness the Future Privacy Forum created this chart. I don't know where I'd be without it. And it's none of the things on the right. So it's not saying, is this the same me coming back? It's not looking at me one-to-one, like when I open up my phone. And it's not doing the one-to-many facial recognition, like finding me in a football field. And then buffers. Can you explain a little bit how buffers work and maybe this use case with the sort of 13, which could be, for instance, social media, which at the moment is in lots of terms of service?
Yeah, sure. So one of the reasons we looked at having buffers and kind of really pushing these with businesses and with industry is age estimation on its own. So is this person 13? Are they 14? Are they 15? That is just an estimation. It's just an estimated age. But with a buffer, we can add in a level of confidence of understanding, understanding that if we decide that we think somebody's 13, we could still get it slightly wrong. So by applying a buffer of 1 to 3 years, we will reduce the likelihood of underestimating or overestimating an age.
But then on that, I suppose a regulator then has to balance that and think for this use case, up until now, a 5-year-old has been ticking a box, or a 5-year-old has been self-asserting, or even the parent has been asserting that this 5-year-old is 13 or 18. So the difference here is some regulators might land on the view that actually being 1 to 1.5 years out is actually better than not allowing some of those in that are close. So that will be a decision for each regulator, and the system in the back end is flexible, so each relying party can decide, according to the country, if a buffer is needed.
That's right. So according to the country, according to the regulator, according to that specific use case. So it's not a case of I set my buffer once and then it's kind of immutable. But if I know that today my user is trying to sign up, I can set one buffer. If tomorrow that same user is trying to perform something that's got a hard restriction, they're trying to buy alcohol, they're trying to purchase a knife, we can set a different buffer at that point in time.
And then choice is the key element. I mean, one of the things that this would classically be done is offered alongside a range of options, and you give people that are within the grey zone those other options, as well as giving consumers the range.
Absolutely.
Yep. So here we go, the table, and there'll be a new one of these, I'm sure, in the next few months, and we will ping when that is the case. But you can see we give very transparently, and we've done this since 2019. There was discussion yesterday about what are the best proxies to use around ethnicity, and this is the current approach, because one of the things we've found, if you're trying to explain this to young people, to parents, to educators, as well as to regulators, as well as to technology people. So obviously behind the hood, we will have a whole range of other elements which can give more proxies around specific countries if that is required. We've already been asked to do that in some countries in Asia. But at the same time, you've got to have something that's digestible by the actual public. So how do we get the data? A little bit on that?
Sure. So Yoti have our own digital ID app. And in this app, users on board with their face, they can add a document issued by a government, and with that document we can see the month and year of birth. So we have a very high quality image capture of the user. We can match that back to an image from the chip in the document. We understand that the document is real. So this is effectively far more effective than kind of scraping data from the internet, where we're not sure about the legitimacy of any information we've captured.
Absolutely, so that wouldn't be an option.
That wouldn't be an option here.
And in terms of numbers of data set for this, and how does this fit in with the reusable digital ID network?
So in terms of numbers, we've managed to pull out kind of millions of people going through this process. I think it's really important to point out that when they go through this process, they're told about how their data may be used. They're given the option to basically choose to be cut out of this kind of data trading. So it's not a case of to use this product, you will have to have your data trained on you, and it'll be trained on forever. You've always got the option to say, actually, I don't want to be part of this.
So you
I
can
just
opt
want to use the
out on
service.
day one or any time after?
On day one or any time after. And the kind of the opt-out process is not buried away or hidden away. It's kept as simple as it is to kind of to join the
And
join
how
the platform.
diverse would the data set be in terms of countries?
So this product, the app, is offered globally. So it's pulling data from all over the world. It's been used by people from all over the world. And then where we do find gaps in our data sets, we'll seek out to work and partner with different kind of companies who can provide consented data for those gaps. So this is the next section where we're going to look at how that digital ID app actually works and kind of how that kind of pulls and plays back into that age verification journey.
So those of you who don't know Asda, one of the UK's largest supermarkets, and that was just an example from where that was set up in the trials that were run in the last couple of years. And again, we can add in the chat, the link to the report from supermarkets and the whole findings from there. But we've been welcomed at this summit, and there's also been members from Lloyds, from Post Office, who are part of the reusable digital ID network called Digital ID Connect. You might have seen some of the T-shirts. And this is enabling anyone that sets up any one of these apps for those to be used interchangeably, interoperably. And then all of those people are pre-verified in all the different circumstances that they might choose to use it. That could be just to share an age, just my over 18, but it could be for a whole range of other use cases. Now, we've got some acronym soup here. You've always got to have some acronyms in a presentation. So MLC's changed TBC. Mandatory licensing conditions. So if anyone lives in the UK, one of the things that they will know is that at the moment, whilst you might be able to use your digital ID in lots of scenarios, for most age-restricted goods, there's one that's been out of balance, and that has been alcohol. Up until now, you've had to show something with a physical holographic marker UV feature. In the last few weeks, the Home Office has just run a consultation to see if this should be changed. So we're all waiting with bated breath to see how that evolves. But that could be something quite ground-changing for all of this industry, because for the first time, it would allow digital forms to be used when people are buying alcohol, which is something in the UK that is quite popular in many supermarkets and other settings. So today already, we are in use in many, many different convenience stores around the country for all goods bar alcohol, but this could be a game changer.
Absolutely.
So there's many different other areas where digital ID is accepted. That can be proof of age for things like lottery tickets, can be for picking up your mail, it can be for vapes, and there are many, many convenience stores, 18,000, I think those are within a very short number of miles of each citizen in the UK. I can't remember the exact number of miles, but Jason might correct me if I get that very wrong. But there's also really important use cases that you might have heard that have come through with the UK Digital Identity and Attributes Trust Framework, such as proving your right to work, your right to rent, or going through a DBS, another acronym, which is a criminal records check here in the UK. And so that is another important use case. So I think all in all, this is all about utility. And one of the things that people have been telling us for years is a key utility they'd like is to prove their age. We've got 1 million people every year lose their driving licence in the UK, 400,000 lose their passport. That puts them at much greater risk of identity theft and fraud. And on the other hand, at retail self-checkouts and in convenience stores, there's 1,000 incidents every day of verbal, physical and racial abuse to retail staff. This can help with that. So how do you create a digital ID? I'll pass to Amari.
So to create a digital ID, let's see if the video plays. I'll just talk my way through it. You can play it for us. There we go. So to create a digital ID, you simply have to add your phone number to the app when you register, put in a 5-digit PIN, and then add your face. And as part of that adding your face process, we'll run a small liveness scan to make sure you're a real person, not holding up an image of somebody else. And then you get the option to add your documents. So you select your issuing document, your issuing country, scan your document, and then we'll perform the actions to make sure it's a real document. We'll match your face to the document. And if you have an NFC chip and an NFC chip reader, we'll scan the NFC chip to make sure it's been issued by the right government. And then once you're done, you're kind of done. You have your own digital ID on your app. You can share any information you want. You can do that privately.
Without a database at the core where Yoti can see what is actually happening. So think of a non-relational database at the core, but we cannot see all the things that Julie or Amari has been doing. The individual has the private key and the secure module of their device.
Yeah, so it's one of the ways we do this is as your data's verified, we split up each item of data. We'll put that into the database somewhere. We send the location of your data back to your phone, so your phone knows where all the data is. That's all encrypted with the key that, as Julie said, is stored on your phone. So Yoti can't do anything without the user's permission from their phone to kind of kick off that interaction.
So if I'm a price-conscious small business, this might be of interest to me. Can you explain?
Yeah, sure. So with one of the offerings we have with the age verification service, we're effectively saying that if you use the Yoti app and offer another method, the app usage is free. So we simply just won't charge people for age verifying with the Yoti app as long as another method is presented at the same time.
And there people might be interested in what the penetration is in certain countries, and our team would be happy to explain that. But say 4.5, 5 million in the UK, and we
Growing
can give
elsewhere.
those details, yeah. So, deepfakes presentation of tax, been something that's been in the press in the last few months. Could you give us a bit of a rundown?
Yes, of course. So one of the common questions that comes out when people hear about age estimation is, surely I can just hold up a picture of my elder sibling or one of my parents in front of the camera. So we've spent a significant amount of time and investment into looking at how to detect these kinds of attacks. So as part of that age verification, age estimation process, when we're looking to detect if there's a face in front of the camera, we're also trying to check, is that a live face in front of the camera? So we're looking for things like, is this a picture? Is this a screen? Is this a person holding up a mask wearing a mask in front of the camera? If all of those checks all pass, we'll then move on to the next stage of trying to estimate the age of a person.
But then what's this about the injection? That's somebody getting in around the back?
So a few smart cookies have also thought, well, perhaps if Yoti can detect if there's a picture, or they can detect if there's a mask or a video, how about I really perform this age estimation for real once, or I get somebody to do it for me, and I make a recording of them doing that, and then I inject the recording back into the camera. So our teams kind of thought, that's very smart. Let's go and spend some time trying to figure out how we can spot if somebody's tampered with the camera input. So one of the tests we run in the background is this image coming from the live camera, or has somebody decided to start to alter the camera feed or alter the device that's feeding the camera? And at that point, we'll then say, something looks a bit suspicious here. We're not going to continue with the process.
And maybe we could put the bounty link. So one of the things we do is we make this open through an organisation so that people around the world can actually prod and poke this.
Yeah, that's great. So we do this with all of our products. As we release things into the wild, we're obviously interested in making sure that they're all running securely. So we'll always offer bounties to any ethical hackers who can look at our system. If they can find weaknesses, we'll then kind of offer them a reward for sharing that information with us, and our security team then handles the progression from there on.
So there's a white paper where you can read all about this. There's actually some little booklets at the front here, all of the white papers that Yoti has done, so looking at liveness detection, looking also at the facial age estimation, and the Gen AI white paper, all available from one QR, and I'm sure we will add the links. So returning users.
Sure. So one of the questions we've had is, do I have to keep on age verifying my users every time?
And could you also explain how this might fit in with what people were hearing on the EU consent part 2?
Yep, so EU consent, they've had the same question come in, and we've both been looking at the ways of solving this challenge. And we've been doing this by looking at, is there a way to take the results of an age verification, kind of wrap these up in an anonymous way, and allowing a user to then represent those results back to another business and another business and another business in a way that each business can verify that that result is legitimate. It's been performed by a trusted age verification provider, but it doesn't reveal any information about who that individual is or where they've been in the past. And I think we have to wrap up, but I'll quickly just go through some of the information that is and is not shared and how that process works. So simply, a user proves their age, an age token is added to their browser like a cookie, and that just says this user's over 18 or over 21, and then the user returns to the site with that age token. We've allowed the ability for users to create accounts so they can store their age tokens in an account, but those accounts are still anonymized, so it's not linked back to an email address or a phone number or any other kind of uniquely identifying information. And then all we really look at is saying, was the token created in a reasonable amount of time? Was it created using an acceptable method of age verification? Does it meet the age criteria? Or does it meet the age threshold, and was the liveness and authenticity check performed?
So one of the things that we've done recently is hold up a round table, which goes through a lot of this in more detail. That recording can be shared with people that request, and we've done several bespoke ones of these for regulators around the world.
I think we're at time.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you all very much for joining us, and enjoy the day.